Hey everybody, welcome to Working on the Dad Pod. Let's get to work. Hey Alex, how you doing today?
I am doing well, Ethan. How are you?
Feeling a little spicy to be honest. I dealt with
I love it.
physical paper at work today, and I realized that I would in fact not survive the Stone Age because I was literally kind of just like moving the pages around and was like, I honestly have no idea if I saw the thing I was looking for or not because
Yeah,
I rely on Control F, and that's not a thing with
it's
physical
it's
paper.
amazing how little paper is involved. Like I have been doing a lot of reading lately, especially with the freedom of one of my kids not being here
Like on a
for several
physical
weeks.
book?
No,
Oh yeah. Okay.
Kindle.
Whew.
Like
Okay.
I'm still not even like I'm renting them digitally from the library,
Nice.
and like in 2023 I now have the ability to like the Martin County Library where I
Hmm.
live, like if they don't have the book, like I'm reading a series of books,
Yeah.
right? And if they don't have the book, like I was able to just get a digital library card from my computer to the Broward County Library, who did have the book for free, and just download it to my Kindle.
Right.
So I go to the
Isn't
library
it?
because it entertains my kids, but that's I don't use the paper books for me at least.
Isn't it? Isn't it kind of wild that there's like a limited number of digital versions? I realize that's like essentially the like original NFT, like a license for like a copy of a physical book,
Sure.
but like it's wild.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's I get why they have to pay somebody. Like the publisher has to get paid,
Sure.
the author
Yeah.
has to get paid, and so they're selling just like you could buy an ebook off of Amazon or something.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
they're buying copies of it. So yeah, but I get it. Yes, it's essentially an NFT.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Um. So, do you want to get into wins and losses?
yeah,
Yeah. I want to
let's
start with
do it.
I want to start with my loss because I feel like it can only get better. And this is going to be a quick
Yeah.
one. There's not a lot of backstory. I dropped my cell phone on my toddler's face, and she started to
Yeesh.
cry. How did that happen? We were lying down as part of her bedtime routine. I felt my phone buzz. I looked at it because it could have been my wife texting me from our infant's room to like just ask if there was like how it was going. It could have been that. I was really just checking a sports score, and then my daughter like rolled and hit my phone with her hand, and it um, uh,
Oof.
just fell on her face. And yeah, so that was my L. What about you?
Oof. So for me, my I'll start with my win because I think those are better. As I mentioned in several episodes, as we mentioned, I guess it was a few episodes ago now when we were talking about mini me's and the process of putting together the kids' room. We finished it with some
Well
time to
done.
spare, which was nice. And so I think it looks fantastic. I know I've sent you pictures, but I think it
Yeah, it looks great.
looks so much improved. There's a lot of floor space, and we talking about stuff and kids stuff a few episodes back. It was just like we're able to add in some cabinets, add in some drawers, some underbed storage to get things more organized. I don't know how organized it will stay when we have two kids, but like there's a lot of stuff that like it almost hides some of the toys. So they're not all so visible and so reachable so that like just pulling out bins of toys and dumping them everywhere won't be as much of an issue. But along with that, part of the reason we were doing it, got the kids bunk beds, and for I guess about 3 nights now, my son has been sleeping on the lower bunk, aka not in our room, aka out of the crib. So that has been a super awesome development. It's been nice to have our room back for the first time in a year and a half. I was able to, like I mentioned, read in bed instead of on the couch until I got tired. My wife was able to watch Netflix a little bit. So it's been a solid transition.
Nice, man. Dare I say, or dare I ask, would you say there's so much room for activities in there?
I would say that there's more. I think that's more storage and less bunk beds because we only had a twin bed in there before, and so the floor space of the
Twin bed,
bed
twin bed.
is not drastically different. The frame is a little bit smaller. We went from like a day bed thing that my wife set up when my daughter was a baby because she was like, I want this to be a nursing station with a bunch of pillows before the kid was ever, 2 years before the kid was ever gonna sleep in said bed. Um, yeah, like but it definitely is a more open plan. What about your win?
My win is another quick one, but just really exciting to see. Our infant, she is standing. It's only like 1 to 3 seconds at a time, but she um, is about a little over a month away from one, and it's just like really exciting to see that.
Big,
She's just
big.
so big now.
She's
It's great.
she is she standing without holding stuff, or is she like standing like holding the couch?
Yeah, I mean, she's so today, like when I dropped her off at preschool, I saw her just like stand upright on her own. But like for a while, she's been doing the cruising for a couple months, with her hands on like the couch and the table. Um, and
Nice,
then let's get into your
nice.
L, man.
So my L was my son. Past couple days, he's gone from, speaking of standing, he's gone from walking and like hustle walking to being able to jog a little bit. And that has led to a couple of unfortunate face plants, which I felt really
Mm,
bad about. I was picking him up at daycare yesterday, and they open the door, and they usually have all the kids up by the front door that are there for like the 3 p.m. pickup. And so he's there with his stuff, and the preschool director opens the door, and she's like, "Hey, man, there's your dad." And he comes running out. I'm like, "Hey, little guy, how's it going? Great to see you." And he comes charging out and doesn't look at the door frame, and it's got one of the just little raised things on the ground, and he just eats it. Thankfully, not into the sidewalk, into the floor, like into the welcome mat above him. But then it turned from this joyous
mm.
thing to just straight tears where I had to hold him on the sidewalk for 5 minutes, kind of holding up car line. Everybody understood.
Aw,
But
poor guy.
yeah, and then he turned around and did it again when we went to the gym shortly thereafter.
Mm.
And that one he didn't trip over anything except his own 2 feet. So I think that could be a product of running, and he just upsized his shoes, so he may be dealing with a little bit of a
Mm.
clown shoe problem. But yeah, that's
Yeah,
my loss for the week.
I remember the very frequent face planting, when my toddler daughter learned how to like run, and it was just like she wasn't understanding that like you have to, and like it's not something you like think about it, but you have to like not let your body go faster than your
Oh
feet.
man, you
Um,
have to getting out over your ski. Have you ever seen this on social media? Right, I see it a lot because I am a Braves fan. But have you ever seen this promotion that they do that quite often goes viral on social media? Beat the freeze.
you know
It's
what? I recognize like the saying, but I don't remember
okay. So basically,
what.
what they do is it's sponsored by, I want to like a racetrack. I want to say like the gas station,
Okay.
and so it's sponsored by them. But what they do is they have a fan come down, and they're running the dirt track around the outfield, right? And they give the fan a head start, and then they've got a guy in just like a blue spandex suit and goggles. And this guy,
Mm,
they've done profiles on him. He's like a former college sprinter. And so they
okay.
give this person until like the first turn or something a head start, and then he chases after them. And 99 times out of 100, he's going to catch him and he's going to beat him. But he
Mhm.
usually doesn't catch him until right before the finish line. They always do that thing where they're going as fast as they can. And then, in an effort to try and go faster, they move their body forward, but their legs aren't going faster and
And
they just
boom.
eat it. And so
Ah.
that's why it always goes viral. It's not just because, oh, wow, the fast guy caught the not college sprinter
Right.
once again. It's because they always are like steps from the finish line, and they're trying to lunge forward, but they're not Usain Bolt doing like a going across the finish line actual track move. They just
Right.
eat dirt. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty much what I think of when I think of toddlers toddling.
That makes sense. Yeah, no, I like that. Yeah, well, congrats to us on really getting through wins and losses with some efficiency tonight. And it's
Yeah,
making me feel good because, like I said, I'm feeling spicy. So I'll just get us into the topic. This is a more controversial topic because it's not something that parents will always admit. Um, but we're going to talk about just like the pros and cons of playdates, particularly the cons being specific friends. We're not going to name any
sure.
names. We're not going to,
Yeah.
um, disparage anybody. But, you know, something I didn't think about when I was a kid, obviously, and then until I'm a parent, is that the play date is not just between you and the kid. It is between you and the other parents. I am happy
Right.
to say that I am in a
I will say this,
group chat.
that it's between your kid and the other kid. It's not between you and the kid. Like don't go on play
Yes,
dates with
yes,
little preschoolers even.
that's a good correction. Um, yeah,
Anyway, sorry to
yeah.
break your flow. I just
Ooh.
wanted to
Anyway,
state that so you're not
anyway.
trying to go play Legos with other people's preschoolers.
Right, we're just recording podcasts. I mean, evidence. I mean, what? Anyway, so, uh, um, where was I before that fun little tangent? So I'm lucky enough to be in a group chat with like three other dads. We all like each other's kids. We like each other's wives. So it's really nice. I assume there's not a side chat that I'm not part of that they make fun of me in. It's entirely possible. That's happened to me before in the past, but ignorance is bliss. But what I will say is that there is another dad who I actually like a lot. He is not in the group chat. One of the reasons is because we don't particularly like the kid nor the mom, and I feel really bad about saying that, but like it is just what it is. We've had play dates with them because like obviously our kid likes their kid, but the situation is just like we don't particularly want our daughter hanging out with the kid who has not just been the hitter, has been the biter, has just been frankly like
Ooh,
the one throwing out
yeah.
a lot of like curse words now. And if you know from like an earlier episode, I
Your daughter is very malleable in that
unintentionally
particular
taught her
department.
the word. Right. But to our knowledge, it has not been reported to us that she has said it at school.
Good.
But like she always comes home giving us a full report of who hit who bit who said what. And it's always the same kid. And then she'll follow it
Yeah.
up with name is my best friend. And sometimes we just ask her why. Like, is that not every friend needs to be a best friend? Like, aren't there
Yeah.
better, more suitable choices for that role? And um, I don't want to make this too much of like a rant about like one kid, but I did just want to like put into context why like and I'm sure some other parents out there, might be hesitant to agree to some certain play dates. So we're new to play dates and that like there was a lot of COVID reasons not to have play dates. And then
Sure.
I'm solo on Saturdays. And even though a play date seems like it would like make sense to take the burden off me, it's actually a lot to like get both kids in the car, get things set
Yeah.
up, pack the milk, do all this stuff that it's like if ultimately it's only going to give me an hour before I have to drive the littlest one back for naps. Honestly, that just creates more work than
Sure.
like the relief would
Sure.
be.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things for us where if you're taking the kids to a playground, for example, and you forget stuff, right? Maybe you forget diapers, applesauce pouches, milk in your case. You can be the bad guy and pull the plug on that you can't do at somebody else's house without being a jerk.
Yeah,
Either you're pulling the plug or you're mooching, and neither of those things feel good.
yeah,
But another thing that we always took into consideration and still do is like the age of the kids, right? I don't
hmm
think send my son to any play dates with any of his classmate friends because he's at an age where all he does is parallel play, which is where they're not really playing together. They're just
Right.
playing with stuff in the same space.
Yeah.
So
Like,
it's not
yeah.
advantageous. But the other thing too is like, as we've mentioned before, we've alluded to many times, we're busy people. So
Yeah.
finding the time to do it and to find those times for play dates can also be tough because it's got to be a time that works. You've got at least one kid that naps. You know, in
Hmm.
my case, I've got one. I think both your daughters still nap daily.
Yeah.
And so it's just like you've got to like squeeze it in with your availability, with their availability, with all that kind of stuff. So it definitely can be a headache.
Yeah.
Um,
Especially, just with, especially with like the naps. What I will say is with my older daughter, my daughter, um, pretty much because of COVID, like she was only used to napping like in her crib or a pack and play like crib like setting. So she our plans always had to be around her nap. She wasn't like nap adaptable. She wasn't nap adaptable
yeah,
to napping like in different situations. Whereas our infant, she can still fall asleep like in the carrier. She'll fall asleep in a stroller.
hmm,
We don't have to plan our days like around her nap. We usually do anyway. Um, it's also sometimes like an excuse to like get out of said thing that we're doing.
right,
But
sure.
she is nap adaptable.
Yeah, and our son has gotten more nap adaptable, but I think one of the things with him being a kid that at daycare only naps once a day, we keep it to one a day.
Mm-hmm.
And that puts a premium on that nap, right? Like if he doesn't get enough nap, today was a prime example. He only napped for an hour and 10 minutes versus normal hour and a half to 2 hours that he'll nap at school. And it makes him cranky and stuff. So we do try to put a premium on that, and we will work our plans around those nap schedules. But I have sort of an interesting thing, right? You've talked about the kids that you don't want to have play dates
Mm-hmm.
with, but we have a 4.5-year-old who has expressed interest in hosting play dates
Mm-hmm.
and going to other people's houses. She hasn't been like formally invited to any particular
Yeah.
play dates, but she's like, yeah, I want to have friends over. And I'm like, I totally get that. And a lot
Mm-hmm.
of our play dates turn into, because as you mentioned, it's also a play date for you and the fellow parent, whoever comes. A lot of our play dates are fortunately with people who were our friends before any of
Mm-hmm.
us had kids. And then we all happen to have kids around the same time, and those kids like each other, and we know we like the parents, and so it's like, okay, we're gonna hang out in our backyard, people come over, have a beer, kids will run around. Like, I'm not trying to get to know you or make small talk
Mm-hmm.
with you. Like, I'm just hanging out with friends, my daughter's hanging out with friends, we're good. But with daycare, it's like she's now expressed interest in like having some of her school friends over for play dates, where most of those parents are like people that we've only really interacted with in a birthday party setting. And,
Yeah.
in a
No.
very structured play date, you kind of have reasonable expectations going in.
Yeah, and that makes sense. You also I think have more local friends from pre parenting than like we do. Like you live in the town that your wife grew up in. Some of her
Sure.
friends are still there. You all had kids around the same time, or like
Right.
for the most part.
Yeah.
We, we're in a. I'm in an odd situation where like yeah, I've been in this area almost exactly 10 years now, but I still don't have like a lot of friends because like because of like moving and getting married and having kids and just like I've always been and still to this day am one of like the youngest people I work with.
Right.
I'm almost 35 and I'm in the government, and I'd still say the average young age for someone in the government is closer to 45 and 50. So I'm not like getting happy hour with the olds. I'm not like with remote work. I'm not like face to face with a lot of interns, and it's just like I don't have a lot of like friends. I need to. I'm happy, so I'm happy like to be bragging about being in a group chat with other dads
Of
because it is
course, of
nice to
course.
like make friends with people of similar interests. And um, my wife is in the opposite situation work wise. It was like she works with all of her friends, but like she's the one that has kids, and
Right.
there's the whole like unfortunately for women in society and moms, they a lot of times are not given an invitation because people assume that she's a mom and doesn't want to like go, which is like really annoying because
Yeah.
dads at her job still get invited out. And
Yeah.
that I feel like
Double
we're
standard you were talking
that,
about in the Super Dad episode.
yeah.
But we have another interesting situation, right? To
Mhm.
dive into these play dates where my daughter has a best friend in her
Mhm.
class last year and this year. Little boy, um, seems like a nice enough kid. We've been to his birthday party. They've come to her birthday party, that kind of thing. But she's expressed interest in inviting him over for a play date, and part of it is like we have to get like there's like our friends are coming over clean, and then there's like brand new guest coming over clean, and
Mhm.
that's like a
Mhm.
whole nother like we've got to like thoroughly vacuum the floors and mop everything and dust the ceiling fans that don't get dusted nearly enough, and that kind of stuff that we don't have to do for our friends that like know us and we've gone over to their house and just kind of do, oh, pardon the mess kind of thing. But we have this situation where like I have the mom's phone number from birthday party RSVPs. And then my mother-in-law had our daughter one day and happened to see this little boy and his mom out and about at a playground, library somewhere, and gave her my wife's number on the premise of having a play date.
Mm.
We're not like, oh man, we need to have a play date. Like we're like, as you mentioned, like we've got some friends. We're not like the most like in a phase in our life where we're trying to like drastically expand our friend pool and all that
Sure.
kind of stuff because of time restrictions. But like she never texted my wife either. So like it's kind of like our daughter's asking for it. We have the ability to send the text. She has the number on the premise of a play date and is not sending it to my wife. And
Mhm.
so it's very much a like, yeah, at some point we should really do that. And both the kids' birthdays are right around the same time in October. And I'm like, so we're going to get to October and see them again. And both kind of know this is happening. But maybe at that point in person, we'll like, hey, we should get together for a play date with our
Yeah.
kids, all that kind of thing. But yeah, we have not been big on play dates for a variety of reasons, but yeah,
Yeah.
there's
And
definitely some added drama there when it's somebody that
yeah.
you don't know that well.
Yeah, no, I feel that. And I mean, we've had people we've invited people over. We much prefer that because then we even though there's the whole other level of cleaning, we kind of like control the situation and we do
Court
like
advantage.
yeah, exactly, home court advantage. And I do it's just it to me it's more fun than like again, I don't like having to end my older daughter's play date because the younger one needs to
Sure.
like go home to nap. And I will say like it just kind of worked out sort of. And it's interesting because it was like this with me and my friends growing up. All of our younger siblings were the same age.
Nice.
And like the three dads that I'm like closest with, their kids are roughly the same age. Like they all started as like my
Yeah.
toddler's class friends, and then they all have younger siblings, roughly the age of my younger daughter. So
Nice.
it's like nice. So they are like family get-togethers, and um, I will say just kind of like how you alluded to on like the wife's your wife's numbers being the one getting getting handed out. When school started, there when preschool started right before my eldest daughter turned 2, that's when we started her. The moms like have this like 20 mom group chat, but like dads were just like not invited. So the fact, like, it wasn't like a, oh, like let the moms handle it. It was just kind of like the moms just have a WhatsApp group and
Yeah.
dads were not invited. And honestly, like the most important advantage of it was that it was like so good for contact tracing and
Yeah.
like symptom sharing. For example,
Yeah.
like if our daughter had like a fever, my wife would just like put out the SOS, like, we have a fever here. Anybody else? And then someone will be like, oh yeah, like me too. But then like 2 hours later, my kid threw up and like I'm still cleaning it now, or I would have texted you guys. And then like we're like on the lookout for the next like hour and a half. Like, is there going to be? And it was actually like super useful because
Sure.
um, there was like 12 of us just contact tracing, and then when the classes merged and it became 24 kids, like we've been trying to add the other half of like the parents in to expand our network. However, that group was not contact tracers. They like that group of parents like just didn't communicate. So it's just like kind of a really interesting
Yeah.
dynamic, just like how I thankfully we were placed with people who like cared enough, and it was also good for like arranging like the teacher gift and like someone took
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
it was a useful group chat.
Yeah. I could definitely see the advantage of that. Last year, my daughter's teacher at the open house was like, "Yeah, I'm going to set up a phone tree, and that way you guys can, have that kind of thing." And we never got it. Like if there was one, then we look like the deadbeats because we weren't in it or something. But like
Mm.
if it existed, we totally missed it. But I'm not dead sure it existed, and we never really felt like reaching out to do it. I will say,
If it existed, we might have missed it. Sorry, go ahead.
for my son, right? You're talking about that age gap. So we've got two sets of really close friends, and like the are around us, and the dads are both in the same homebrew group that I'm in. So it like gives us a chance to just like hang out and be guys when we go to those meetings once a month, and not have the kids around and have those social experiences. And they both have daughters who one is 3 weeks older than my daughter, and another is 3 weeks younger, which puts them at 4.5 years old. They're the same age.
Mm-hmm.
But with my son, they both have second kids. But you were talking about that lining it up. They both have second daughters who are both at least 2 years old now.
Mm.
So their second kids are older and they're female. And my son, he will play with anybody because again, he's doing the parallel play thing. He's doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
As I mentioned, my daughter's best friend at school is a boy. I don't think either one of them care that much, but it is something that I'm cognizant of like he does not have a built-in set of really close friends that we can rely on when he gets to that age, and we'll probably have to do more play dates with his classmates to like get him friends that like he's probably going to get really tired of hanging out with his big sister and all of her friends, because even her friends' little sisters are sort of part of the entourage, so to speak. And so he just kind of would be 1 verse 5, and I think be treated like he currently gets treated like the little baby doll. I think he's just going to get tired of that pretty soon and pretty quickly.
I will say, and this whole conversation just made me reminded me of it. But one of the dads in my group chat, like at drop off it was either late last week or early this week. The days are, whatever. He said to me like, "Hey, like I wanted to talk to you about something," and I was like, "Yeah," and he was like, "My wife and I were talking, and can we put you guys down as like our emergency contact for our son?" And I was just
Wow.
like, I was like, it was literally, I felt like I won a effing Oscar, man. And
Yeah.
like my wife is just like, that makes sense. Our kids are friends, and like we live the closest to the school. And I was like, why are you taking this away from me? Like
This
I
was
was
a big moment.
chosen. This is
Yeah.
basically him being like getting down on one knee and asking me to spend the rest of our lives together as best friends. That is how I felt in that moment.
You're over here crying in the parking lot of an Olive Garden. That's a
Yeah,
inside joke
exactly.
for a friend of ours. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
it's
That was it was a beautiful moment in my life that she just
yeah,
pooped on.
just
Or as
washed
my
all
daughter would
over.
say, she poos on. You can
Poop
listen to an earlier episode to admit
for anybody, any Tad Lasso fans, it's poop.
that. Pivot.
Um, yeah, so I think that's really cool. Honestly,
Yeah. It was nice.
obviously, we would use our moms
Sure.
for those situations, and like a lot of people around here, being a smaller town and less of a transient town like DC is, like
Hmm.
most like not most, but a lot of our friends, their parents live close by, or because we are like ex-urban Florida, a lot of parents, like my mom, retired here, even though they
Right.
didn't spend any of their childhood or working years here.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I wanted to ask you a question though.
Yeah.
And this sort of tails off from Playdates, but goes in a new direction for the future, because it talked about the future of my son. But like,
Hmm.
I think it's one thing when you're trying to set up a play date with a kid that maybe you're like, okay, this kid's a little bit of a biter or a
Yeah.
hitter, or maybe in a few years they're a kid with ADHD or something else and like some behavioral issues that make them a handful. But then I think we get to an age, I don't know if that's 10, if that's 13, if that's high school, where our kids are going to make friends at school in this much bigger population,
Hmm.
and maybe we don't agree with all of the like the friends that they make. I mean,
Yeah.
I have not put a ton of thought about how I'm going to handle this situation, because I see dads out there, right? In like I'm in some Facebook groups for dads, and that kind of can
Yeah.
be self-explanatory that like those can become, they've got tens of thousands of members and can become like toxic places sometimes, with people doing the thing of like my house my rules, and
Hmm.
I'm not that kind of dad. I mean, I know that maybe when I talk about my bedtime routine and being regimented, that it seems that way, but that's coming from a different place than like
Yeah.
my house my rules. I'm open to
Yeah.
having conversations about the rules and boundaries with my 4.5 year old. When
Right.
they're 13
It's
years old, I'm going to have that
yeah.
too. But I struggle with the idea of like, what if my kid gets in with a crowd of kids that I'm just like, these kids, I like every other parent think my kid has tons of potential, and I don't want them to screw it up by being with the wrong group of kids. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that? On how you might handle that?
So so it's interesting because I'm thinking about myself and my younger brother. Um, you know, uh, don't let this get to your head, but I have always found myself with a really good friend group in terms
Sure.
of like the people in which that like I find myself gravitating to and associating to,
Yeah.
like associating with, like you and me, a couple other guys were roommates, were best friends in college, and then at my bachelor party, um, you guys, there was a little bit in that one New Year's in LA, but at my bachelor party, it was kind of as if like everybody found their like counterpart between like my childhood friends and my college friends, and it's like, oh, like
It
we play
reminds me
this
of
role in Ethan's life, and it
it
was like
reminds me
everybody,
of an episode of Seinfeld where like
the Bizarro, yeah,
Summer George, like, oh, you're
right,
Summer George. Oh, you're. I forget the dude's name. I'm sure one of our buddies is like screaming
yeah,
at his podcast feed right now that I don't remember line for
right,
line that episode because he's seen it a dozen times. But yeah, that's what it. Yeah,
yeah,
and
and
we've had that, and yeah. So anyway, continue. I don't
yeah,
want to
and
cut you off.
yeah, and whereas my younger brother went through a phase where he was hanging out with some odd folk in a way where like my parents were definitely like uncomfortable with it, so they deflected and made me handle it, and it was one of those things where
Solid.
you know because they knew that like I wanted what was best for my brother too, and that like I clearly had a better sense of judgment at that point in my life. So I kind of
That's saying something.
just I kind of like addressed it with him, and I hope I can do something similar with my daughters when they're a little bit older, but just kind of being like, what is fun about hanging out with this person for you? What do you like about them? Like, what is it that they, I'll probably say it differently, but like, what is it that they bring to the table? What is their like value add to your life? And
Yeah.
sometimes, like, you have to put people in that kind of like numeric value based position. And
Yeah.
it's like, I hate saying that because, like, in other facets of life, like, you don't want to do that. But sometimes, like, especially when evaluating a relationship, whether
Mm-hmm.
that be friendship, romantic, um, familial, where, like, you've got that like one like terrible uncle.
Yeah.
You really gotta contemplate what's it worth to you. Um, and that's I couldn't articulate that, even though I just stuttered right there. I couldn't articulate that well at 16 as I can today at almost 35, but
Yeah.
I was still able to like frame it in a way that a 13-year-old would understand. And ultimately, like, I would say, like, my younger brother has now got like an amazing friend group. He still lives in Los Angeles. A lot of the people he still talks to, he's like known since kindergarten, and they all still hang out today, and like that's great. But there was definitely a couple rough patches.
Sure.
So to just bring it back to your question, I think it's a lot of like just communication and asking your kids what it is that they're like looking for out of the relationship. And
Yeah.
um, I'm sure, assuming that your kids end up following their traditional gender norms of society, it'll be a different you'll have a different feel having the conversation with your daughter and then your son. Whereas, like,
Yeah. And I
I
think
assume
for
it'll be
me,
for
I think where I have tended to land in these theoreticals, because like I think there's a lot of, you have to trust that you have instilled quality values in your kid.
Mhm.
I tend to land on that side, but I say that from a position of like, neither of my kids' value systems have really been challenged to this
Right.
point in their life. So I don't, it's really easy to say I trust that I've instilled good values in them, when the question is like, do you want more candy or do you want fruit? And like, that's the toughest thing. And like getting a sense of pride when they're like, I want fruit. And you're
Yeah.
like, heck yeah, less sugar, but still sugar. So,
Good sugar.
but I think the other thing, in addition to what you're talking about is this person a net positive or a net negative in my life? Are they dragging me down? Are they not making me the person I want to be? I think another form of communication that we could have with our kids probably is explaining our concerns in a way that is not a mandate, right? I think there's a way to
Mhm.
be like, I'm concerned about this, so therefore you
Yeah.
need to X. And X can be cut them out, not do this, can't go. Or my concerns are this, and give them an opportunity to allay your concerns. And then I think there's a potential there to build trust of like, hey, this is my concern. What do you got for me? They
Mhm.
tell you, and it can build more trust instead of like betraying the trust or eroding the trust or not letting the trust build to begin with, by saying, okay, if you tell me that, you're not going to do something illegal tonight when you go over to a friend's house, if you're telling me that you're going to protect yourself, your self worth, your body, as a conversation that I'm sure I'll have to have down the line with both of my kids, but like protecting your integrity, whatever that means to you, and whatever, I will be more
Mhm.
specific when I have more specific concerns.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think giving them an opportunity to say, yeah, you can trust me, and then giving them that trust until or unless it's broken, is probably another way to frame it, instead of putting the onus on some other kid that I can't control, being like, hey, listen, I'm not here to judge them and the decisions they make. Here's what I'm worried about, how it affects you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so that, yeah, but that's definitely a bridge, a more complicated conversation than like why we have to brush our teeth every night.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I would like to take this opportunity. I think this is we put ourselves out there. We want to solicit listener feedback. So I just want to make sure that this is known. Um, Alex and I are not experts. We are not here to give advice. We are not here
Yeah.
to tell you what to do. We are sharing our experiences. We are sharing our stories. We are sharing how we would act in certain situations because of the people that we are.
And if that
Neither of us.
resonates with you, like if
Yeah.
that resonates with you, I'm
Yeah.
happy for you to act on it. And I want to
Yeah.
say that like if you take an idea like from our eating with your kids episode, like smart home, put in a character, inspire your kids. If you want to try that, that's low cost. But there are some things within that episode, with other episodes, where we're going to mention that we were consulted by our pediatrician or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, where there's an implicit thing, and maybe we can get more explicit about it, but like, talk to your doctor. Our
Yeah.
next episode that we're going to record is going to be about fitness and working out. And that disclaimer will be in there just like it should be for the dieting episode. Like, don't go on a high protein diet because I said I did that and I liked
Right.
it. Don't cut a bunch of calories because Ethan said he did that and liked it. Like, talk
Mm-hmm.
to a doctor, know yourself, all those kinds of things, talk to experts. And when we get a little bit bigger and we get a little bit more reach, and it's of value to the expert to come on to our
Yeah, we will
show,
bring them.
we want to. I mean, I know we mentioned that with our screen time episode. Like, we want to have experts on this conversation. But no, there are very few things
Mm-hmm.
that we are experts on that would make good podcast material. Like, I am
My
an expert.
expertise is legit being a generalist with expertise in nothing. I am
There you go.
successful because I know a little bit about everything. I do not
Right.
know a lot about anything. That is why I have been successful professionally and just kind of like successful as like a social human.
Yeah.
So I am not an expert. Do not come here listening to me for expertise. Just listen to me rant about my life. That is what we're doing here. This is a podcast to talk about what it's like to be dads and to have conversations because dads don't do that.
And we want to have the
As often
conversations
as they
that
do.
resonate because we
Yeah,
want this to feel like you are sitting down with a couple of friends. I know, that has been a goal of this podcast, but yes, just to feel like we're having conversations that can be had, but please don't. And just the reason we're saying this is because, and I'm not 100% convinced it wasn't a bot, but we got some
sure.
comments on a TikTok that made some wild accusations and essentially told us to shut up because we didn't have degrees in any of the things we were talking about when
And that we
Ethan was
shouldn't be parents.
describing how he had fed his kids. And the
Mhm.
thing that wasn't included in that 90-second TikTok was the part before that where it's like talking to our pediatrician. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, dang, I could have added the 10 seconds in there, but
Mhm.
I didn't think that that needed to always be explicit. But it was not like
Yeah.
none of these are mandates or what you should do. And
No.
the other real fact about this is we just talked about is there is a lot of crap we have not experienced and we're going off theories of how we might handle it 10 years down the road. So
Right.
like our oldest kid between our four kids is going into preschool this coming year. Like there is
Right.
a
Yeah.
lot
We
coming
have
down
not
the pipe.
we have not been doing this for a while. And this was just something we wanted to do because it wasn't being done. So we are trying to fill a
And
void.
because
We're not
our
trying to change.
sports takes would be way worse.
True. True. Yeah. You want us to
Or
do a
better.
sports podcast? Oh, we'll do one. We'll do one.
We're giving this show way too much attention. We
Yeah,
should
it's true.
probably
I know
put a bow on this one.
and that was not my goal. I just wanted to reiterate for the, like I said, millions of listeners eventually, that this is what we're doing. And we're not doing we're not trying to tell you how to live your lives. We're telling you about the experience in our own. And we want it to be relatable. That's all.
For sure.
Anyway, with that, thank you so much for working on the Dad Pod with us. And we'll see you next time. Have a good one.
See you guys. Bye. Thanks for working on the Dad Pod with us. Any resources that we mentioned during the show will be in the show notes. If you have questions, thoughts, or just want to talk with us, the best place is in the comments on YouTube. We're on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Threads at Working on the Dad Pod, and on Twitter at Working on Dad Pod. Following and subscribing is always appreciated. Please rate and review us. That helps get the show to new people. And if you know a dad who would enjoy our show, sharing it with them is a huge help to them and us. Have a great week.